Thanks for joining me, everyone. I made a mistake. It appears now that the LVMPD set up a temporary CP command post behind the Mandalay Bay near Shark Reef, which actually makes perfect sense for two reasons. First, it's opposite of the side of the building with gunfire. Second, it's a GPS location easily understood by other responding units for coordination purposes. I know I previously said Hancock said Shark Ridge, and I thought they went to Shark Ridge. I already removed that from my previous video. I know you guys like that I try my best to present overlooked information as accurately as possible. Now I'm going to switch gears and talk about the Shark Reef temporary command post set up behind the Mandalay Bay, and then after I have a bunch of information from the Johnson-Higgins intelligence report about Brian Hodge and some other interesting information to go over, including a couple of interviews I got with Brian Hodge, so you're going to want to stay tuned for that. But first, you're getting ready to see footage of a handful of people who were detained by the LVMPD and SWAT being escorted to a command post holding area for further investigation. I have no idea whether these people were involved in the shooting in any way. I just found it interesting that they were all detained and being escorted for further questioning.
Actually, you know what? I've got charges in my vehicle. I'm going to take Sean and go to my vehicle. We'll meet you over at Shark Reef.
Shark Reef.
Yep,
Okay.
and that's where Corey and those guys are supposed to meet you as well. All right? Sean, you agree?
Well, at least our car is far enough away that we start taking it loose. Or I can see.
Hopefully it's still there.
I'm open.
I have no idea.
Back there somewhere. I'm going to go find it.
All right.
Put these people in it. All right, guys, come on.
Russell, Las Vegas. 44, we're here. Where do you need us? Truck 15, arrived at the lane.
We're looking on those other gates.
Okay, and it is 0600 hours, 54 minutes, and 23 seconds Zulu time, which my understanding that translates to 11:54 p.m. Just to kind of give you guys an idea of what time it is right now. And then I counted 5 people that they were escorting to a holding area for further investigation. I'm saying that they were detained, even though we don't actually see any of them handcuffed. Obviously, they're being guarded by the police, who are heavily armed, and they're being told that they can't go anywhere. We know that one of them claimed to be an employee. Apparently, they either are trying to verify that information, or he didn't check out. In other words, he lied. You would think that they'd be able to verify that pretty quickly if it was true. So it looks like maybe he wasn't honest, and that's why they're continuing to investigate that gentleman. And then another one that we know was caught on the property without any business there that he could explain. No good reason to be on the property, and they found drugs on him as well. The other 3, I just don't know anything about right now. The majority of this information is devoted to the erratic and irreconcilable statements and actions by Brian Hodge, who is believed to be the second shooter and has some kind of connection to Paddock and the attack. And while I agree with the intelligence report's theory or conclusion that a couple of the reasons for this these shootings had to do with to hurt Trump, deep state attempt to hurt Trump, and also this plan, this Chertoff OSI plan, to put these metal detectors and scanners in all these casinos and schools and stuff as part of a police state security implementation. I agree with that information. And by the way, those scanners, detectors, are supposedly extremely dangerous for humans. Professor James Fetzer talked about how they use this similar technology as what they use when you get an X-ray, and how you have to wear a lead vest and how dangerous that is, and that's just a millisecond. Imagine having to walk through one of these detectors and being exposed to that type of radiation for several seconds. Could cause tremendous damage. But I believe that one of the underlying parts of the shooting is that it's what I refer to as a FEMA active shooter drill scam, where they have these drills and stuff for gun control legislation that they're having trouble getting passed because it's unconstitutional. And I talked more about the FEMA manual in my Molson Coors video, and there's actually a lot of information in the manual that is extremely bizarre and very, very interesting. So you might want to check that video out, or even read the manual, the FEMA drill manual. I'm not going to get into that right now. But on to Mr. Hodge, the second shooter suspect. Mr. Hodge arrived in Las Vegas on September 30th. Legacy social media analysis tracked Mr. Hodge to Las Vegas that afternoon. He appears to have visited the Bellagio Hotel that evening and checked into his Mandalay Bay room 32314 at around 12:15 a.m. on October 1st. His Twitter activity raises many red flags. Twitter has a geolocation capability, and his postings show that he was located in Los Angeles prior to leaving for Las Vegas. Here's where it gets weird. Hodge's Twitter account remained inactive until about an hour before the time of the attack on the Route 91 Country Music Festival on the night of October 1st, 2017. During the attack, Hodge became active on Twitter again and also used Facebook and Instagram. Analysts remind us that Hodge's social media usage was likely done to develop a cover to shield him from involvement in the shooting. Hodge became active on Twitter from October 1st to the 2nd, but his account information was deceptive in nature according to the assessment. His posts simply do not add up, and he appears to be going out of his way to hide something. During the attack, Hodge tweeted out at 10:52 p.m. that he was hiding in the bushes. However, Hodge took the extremely unusual step to disable his geolocation function on his Twitter and had done so since his departure from LA. Disabling this masks a user's actual location. This need to disable Twitter geolocation is a surveillance avoidance tactic that is taught among various bad actors, including domestic and international terrorist groups, the assessment points out. The geolocation feature stays disabled throughout the attack that night, during which he also claimed that there were, quote, multiple shooters, unquote, with, quote, one on my hotel room floor, unquote. At the time of that tweet, Paddock was already dead on the hotel room floor, the room where Hodge claimed to be staying. Why would Mr. Hodge take the deliberate step to disable his location tracking on Twitter before, during, and after the attack? Question mark. Needless to say, Hodge needs further investigation, as the more I read this report, the more I was convinced that he was the killer of Paddock and involved in the shooting to some extent. Hodge is also a prolific user on Facebook and regularly shares what he is doing with his friends on social media. The night of the attack, he was active on Facebook. Here's another key post that casts a darker shadow on Hodge. At 8:51 p.m. on October 1st, just 1 hour before the shooting started, Mr. Hodge shared a post from the Kumi Japanese restaurant, which is located in the Mandalay Bay Hotel. The post reads that he is having a, quote, team dinner, unquote, with Facebook tracking his location as Las Vegas while eating at the restaurant. Was that the team of shooters set to join Paddock later that night? Question mark. And I will share that Facebook post on the screen with you, as well as another Facebook post that I'm going to talk about now, where Hodge places himself inside the second room of 32-134 that was rented by Paddock. Was this a mistake? I don't think so. He apparently checked into room 32314, but said he was in the room next door to a shooter in a Facebook post shown on the screen. The 32134 suite was the most likely entry and exit point for a possible second shooter to get to the hallway. There were broken windows from both rooms. At 10:29 p.m., about 14 minutes after the attack was over, Hodge posted on Facebook that there is a, quote, live shooter with a gun in my hotel in Vegas right now, but I got outside safely and hiding in bushes, unquote. What is quite perplexing is the fact that this post tracked Mr. Hodge to Enterprise, Nevada, 8 miles south of Mandalay Bay. How could he be there when he was supposedly hiding in the bushes outside of the casino? Question mark. And what it looks like might have happened was, it looks like, because we found out that Hodge ended up getting pressured by investigators during questioning eventually, and he claimed that he was being hid at the Vidara Hotel. So it looks like MGM helped Hodge get away and hid him at the Vidara. That's also where Campos was protected and hid under armed guard at the Vidara as well by the MGM. So I think that they did that with Hodge. They hid Hodge at the Vidara. Meanwhile, somebody made it look like Hodge was in Enterprise, and they also made it look like Hodge was at the Knotty Pine Motel in North Las Vegas. So what I think happened, and then the whereabouts of Mary Lou Danley was extremely covered up as well. And it turned out that Mary Lou Danley, according to a basic background check, the last place that Mary Lou Danley worked for and likely still works for is the FBI. And that gets into my theory that this was a FEMA active shooter drill scam for the purpose of trying to gain support for unconstitutional gun control legislation. And if I'm correct, it's interesting that they say that the basic background check shows that Mary Lou Danley works for the FBI, and people are saying that Stephen Paddock was either CIA or related to the FBI. And now Hodge his whereabouts is being covered up by other people. I think they're using his accounts and devices that are with his accounts to make it look like he's in places where he's not. And it turns out that he was at the Vidara the whole time, being protected and hid by the MGM. Another interesting post by Hodge included him claiming at 1:13 a.m. that the shooters killed a security guard on his floor. This is interesting because the security guard did not die, though he was shot. But how would Hodge know only 3 hours after the attack, ahead of the public and most officials, that a security guard had been shot on the 32nd floor if he was outside hiding in the bushes. How else would Hodge know unless he was present during the shooting and assumed the guard was dead after being shot multiple times? It's possible that a security guard was killed and that investigators never released that information as part of the investigation to see who might know what they shouldn't know. Sometimes they do that. Sometimes the police will withhold, or investigators will withhold information. That way, if someone says that they know something, or they make a comment, or they post something that shows that they have knowledge that was never released to the public, investigators can then use that to question the person, or to identify a person as being involved. Here are some other points. Mr. Hodge identifies as staying in the Mandalay Bay room 134. He actively concealed his geolocation on Twitter during the time immediately following the attack. He has odd pictures and anomalies in his Facebook and Instagram postings that merit further investigation, and he also had odd and unexplained travel pattern signatures, all merit further investigation. Since the Vegas attack, Hodge has dialed back his social media presence, locking down his Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram accounts. But there's more. Social media analysis also discovered that Hodge departed the Mandalay Bay area shortly after the attack and traveled to a motel 10 miles north at the Knotty Pine Motel, which is interesting because another report was that he was in south of Las Vegas in Enterprise. So again, it looks like people were using his devices and his accounts, possibly, to obscure his true location, which was at the Vidara. He was being protected at the Vidara and hid at the Vidara by the MGM. And again, if he's being protected by authorities, that again gets into my theory that this was a FEMA active shooter drill scam for gun control legislation, which bump stocks ended up getting banned after the Las Vegas shootings. In an interesting exchange on Facebook on October 3rd, Mr. Hodge ignores a question asked by Barbara Ann, instead directly responding to an unasked question with a, quote, "There was only one," unquote, feeding the Paddock lone wolf narrative perpetuated by the LVMPD and FBI. He also was contradicting his previous statements that there were multiple shooters. And I'm going to put another post by Hodge on the screen as well. Hodge's travel patterns after the shooting are also suspect. He went from Las Vegas to Albuquerque, then back to Las Vegas on the way home to LA. He remained strangely silent in the few days after the night of October 1st, despite having just escaped the largest mass shooting in American history. In New Mexico, Hodge traveled to the Antalya Doner Kebab House, a restaurant owned by Mehmet Kakangul and Umet Kakangul. Mehmet is a Turkish national from Adana, Turkey, which is a known center of Islamic State activity in that part of the country. And after studying some footage from the shooting, I did discover somebody on in the video, one of the videos, who bears an uncanny resemblance to Umet Kakangul, and I'm going to provide that for you guys on the screen. Now, I'm not saying that it's the same person, but in my opinion, it looks like it could be the same person. Use your own judgment and you know, your own opinion. I'm just giving you my opinion. It looks to me like it's the same person. It looks like Umet Kakangul caught on video going towards the Mandalay Bay. He's wearing all black, and again, I'll show the picture on screen. Maybe it's not him. Maybe I'm wrong. I'll also provide a link in the description for that particular video, so you guys can watch the whole thing if you want, just to show you that it is from the night of the shooting, just in case I'm correct and that is him. I don't want you to think that I got that video or that footage from some other time that isn't related. That is from the night of the shooting, as you can see in the video, as you can watch it yourself. A discovery from the Knotty Pine Motel records reveals interesting information that should spark further investigation. A Mexican national named German Moreno was renting a room there the night Hodge was reportedly there. Mr. Moreno's car has a license plate tag which points to him being from Guanajuato, Mexico, specifically the city of Panjamo. This part of Mexico has dealt with Islamic State issues in recent years. The following links are a couple stories and studies to support this claim. And I'll leave links in the description for these two articles if anyone would like to read them. They basically just include information about ISIS and stuff like that in Mexico. There were two other individuals associated with Moreno's vehicle. Why did Hodge use such a random alibi to explain a 3-hour time period following the shooting, saying that he was hiding in the bushes? Was the team he met with earlier that night at the restaurant and later at the motel a group of ISIS and/or Antifa operatives that arrived in Vegas to support the attack that night? And I did provide photos that are definitely authentic of Mehmet Kokengul and Umet Kokengul. There's no doubt that those are pictures of those two. And Brian Hodge also I provided a picture of, and there's no doubt that that is Brian Hodge. Now, I was unable to find a picture of German Moreno that I could verify 100% as being authentic, so I'm not going to... I've got a picture that I think is him, but I'm not positive, so I'm not going to share it. But I will share those other photos with you guys. One statistic worth mentioning is that there were at least 150 Mexicans in the Islamic State of Syria, according to the British Institute of Defense. Here are some more coincidences, inconsistencies, and irreconcilable facts. According to the site Publimetro, in September 2015, the military intelligence and agents of the Special Prosecutor's Office for High-Impact Crimes of the Attorney General's Office of the state discovered an Islamic State recruiter in Leon, Guanajuato. However, he could not be stopped because the spreading of jihadist propaganda is not a crime in Mexico, and neither is recruitment. And now this information doesn't surprise me at all. I did a video already about Mexico and about, it was, I believe his name was El Chapo Guzman Jr., the son of the famous El Chapo, who's already locked up. But authorities in Mexico went in and tried to arrest, well, they did arrest El Chapo Jr., and they were actually intercepted by what was labeled the cartel, and forced what they labeled the cartel forced the police and military to not only release El Chapo Guzman Jr., but also they went and initiated several prison escapes and let a bunch of prisoners out, basically overpowering the Mexican military and police. So what I think people are labeling the cartel are probably terrorists and maybe related and linked to ISIS. And that's part of the reason why I supported Trump's position on southern border security, was because of what's going on over there right now and the seriousness of it. Mexican police and military aren't even controlling these groups. We definitely don't want them coming over here. Hodge's public statements and interviews are also inconsistent and interesting to note, the first of which was to a public relations specialist named Nicole Barlow in Australia, who published an article in an Australian newspaper at 9:30 p.m. on October 2nd, Australian time, which was 2:30 a.m. in Vegas. In the article, Hodge claimed that he was, quote, staying in a hotel on the outskirts of town while he awaits further instruction, unquote, and he was, quote, meant to be in Las Vegas for 2 weeks, unquote. This does not correspond to other public statements and social media postings Mr. Hodge said during this time period. And what was he awaiting further instruction on? Did he simply misspeak, or did he unintentionally signal his involvement in the attack? Here's a summary of some of the things that Hodge said. He confirmed that he was staying inside the shooter's suite on the 32nd floor during the time of the attack, departing the floor via the elevator and exiting the hotel through the kitchen, hiding in the bushes for 3.5 hours. He withholds significant information from the interviewers and does not disclose the fact that he has found shelter at the Vidara or describe his exposure to weapons fire until prodded by the interviewers. He describes in vivid detail the view from the 32nd floor as the victims were cut down with, quote, sweeping shots, unquote, and uses the term, quote, full on, unquote, to excitedly describe the attack. He knows that Mr. Paddock brought a hammer that was used to break the glass, double pane or bulletproof or whatever casino glass is made of, unquote, in order to shatter the windows of the hotel suite. He claims he was monitoring social media and listening to police, quote, live scans, unquote. He made clear to kitchen employees the, quote, need to get us outside the casino, unquote, in order to avoid the imminent lockdown of the hotel or to avoid cameras. He states there are, quote, 100-odd shots, unquote, which is a strange coincidence given the use of 100-round surefire magazines or 100-round machine gun belts. A picture from Mr. Paddock's room depicts a rifle with this type of 100-round magazine affixed. He expresses concerns about, quote, how to demonstrate we are civilians, unquote, as well as a general fear of getting shot by the police. Hodge also claims that he attempted to return to his room within the first 24 hours after the attack and made it as far as the 32nd floor, but had to leave due to the memory of the shooting, stating, quote, I was faced with what I was faced with last night, the sound of the guns and the fire of the bullets when I was up there, unquote, and claims to have allowed the hotel staff and police to go in and gather his belongings on his behalf. He states that immediately after the attack he needed to, quote, stay down, stay hidden for 3.5 hours. He says, quote, from the hotel room, some of my team could see, unquote, when describing what the attack was like. Hodge tries to stick to the script and includes very few specifics, only speaking to events on the 32nd floor when pressed by interviewers. In points during the interviews, he appears to lose track of his story and reveals more than he wishes he did or changes his story somehow. I know a liar when I hear one. Lies always lead to incomprehensible timelines and stories, and this is what we are hearing from Hodge. Further details of his travel history in the weeks prior to the Vegas attack also warrant further investigation. According to Facebook, Hodge traveled to Berlin, Paris, London, and back to Berlin 2 weeks prior to the attacks in Vegas. Ed Klein published some details regarding the FBI's close monitoring of Antifa and its connections with ISIS and Al-Qaeda personnel in Germany. The FBI discovered a, quote, level of chatter, unquote, between left-wing revolutionary groups and Islamic terrorist groups in the weeks prior to the Vegas shooting. Furthermore, since the attack, Hodge again traveled to Berlin and London in mid-November. The Berlin travel does not appear to have been publicly acknowledged by Hodge, who also traveled to Australia the next month after that, staying in Melbourne for only a day or two before returning to the U.S. Melbourne's Antifa was one of the first organizations claiming credit for the attack in Vegas, stating that they were targeting, quote, fascist Trump-supporting dogs, unquote. That post was up for a short period of time before being deleted, but you can read it in its entirety on the screen. I'll provide it. And ISIS also claimed credit for the attack. That doesn't mean that it wasn't a FEMA active shooter drill scam where they hired people that are connected to ISIS or that are connected to Antifa to carry out the shooting. That's possible. And you have to remember who creates these groups. It's the CIA. Hodge is from an area near Melbourne, Australia, and traveled there in 2017. The Islamic terrorist connection is quite worthy of additional investigation. Islamic compliant religious travel organizations' contact information was found on Mr. Hodge's phone. It also appears that Hodge used a safe house at one point, according to the assessment. The political context cannot be ignored when investigating the Las Vegas shooting. A classified FBI memo in July 2017 showed that they were aware of ongoing and increasing collaboration between Antifa, ISIS, and multiple al-Qaeda cells. The connection between Hodge and Antifa and ISIS and the association between Hodge and Paddock must be ascertained for this investigation to fully uncover what really happened and the motivation behind the slaughter. However, Hodge's social media direct messages and other historical data have been wiped. In addition, email addresses have been deleted in classic, crooked Hillary fashion. Hodge has also changed his phone number and physical address since the attack. The shooters procured a massive amount of bullets and weapons and a large enough suite to stage the crime scene. There's also a report that around 30 FBI agents checked into the Mandalay Bay just prior to the shooting. And this would all point to a FEMA active shooter drill scam that served a dual purpose: to gain support for unconstitutional gun control legislation and to hurt Trump and his supporters. And we found out that they used a look-alike, that it wasn't really Stephen Paddock that was the deceased body in 32-135. It was someone that looked like him. And we were able to make that determination possibly two ways. One obvious way was by looking at the ears. The earlobes in particular didn't match. If you look at the real Paddock, and I went over that in previous videos, and if you look at the body, they're not the same. And then supposedly the real Paddock might have had a tattoo on his neck that's a tattoo of a 13, the number 13. Now I'm not positive about that. I can't verify that. Other people have said that the number 13 referred to a photo number. So I'm not sure. I'm not really going to speak on that. But what I am sure of is that the body in 32-135 was not Paddock. And that's the reason why it took them 4 months or so and a court order to release the autopsy. And in the autopsy it says that the identity of the victim, of the deceased person, was tentative and uncertain, and they couldn't name how they verified the person's identity through the fingerprints. They didn't list any validators. And speaking of the Paddock lookalike, I actually have something that I'm working on. I need to gather more information, but I have something that you're going to be shocked. If I'm correct, I have a theory that I'm working on and some information. I need to get more information, but I'm going to present it once I get it all put together. And if I'm correct, you're going to be shocked at what I reveal about the Paddock lookalike, the body, and where they got it and who that person was. So I'm going to leave a link in the description for this video that I'm using as a reference for, I saw some interesting stuff, And so basically, you guys know what we're looking at here. Here's the Mandalay Bay. This would be the venue in here. And then in the video that I'm going to link, that I'm getting ready to talk about now, people were able to exit the venue when the shooting began, either around right here or right around here. And they went up this way, so they were lucky. Other people tried jumping the fence or going this way, and then up the strip, or Las Vegas Boulevard. And of course, on this side, they would be more exposed to gunfire. So they worked their way, in the video, they're working their way this way. And this is where the Army, I saw 2 Army trailer trucks and almost like an Army box truck or command post or something. And this is exactly the parking lot where they're parked, right here. And it's the same video where I see someone that looks just like Umet Cockingall, who was mentioned in the Johnson-Higgins intelligence report. And so then this would be the area where, as they were walking this way towards this parking lot, that church was on the right, just to give everyone a little bit of perspective. And then this is the Tropicana property. So that means that those Army vehicles, the 2 Army trailer trucks and the Army box truck or command post, whatever it is, it almost looks like a command post because it looks like it has a door on the side of it, almost like a trailer, temporary trailer. They were parked on the Tropicana property. And I just think it's interesting because a lot of people who are gun experts who listened to the shooting or were there during the shooting, including LVMPD officers who are either former military or currently, they might be currently military, they could be in the reserves or something and still be law enforcement as well at the same time. A lot of them said that they believe a belt-fed was used, a belt-fed gun was used, and that was at least one of the guns was a belt-fed, like a M240, which I've got them talking about in the last video I did. We had an LVMPD officer talking about, in his opinion, at least one of the guns used was a 240, and I'll show you on the screen. And that's a military gun. That's an Army gun. So I just found it interesting that these Army vehicles are there. And when you look at all the guns and stuff that they found, you have to wonder where they got them all. And then they put them in that staged crime scene.
Brian Hodge is on the line from Las Vegas. Brian has been reported this morning in the Herald Sun as having a room either right next door or very close to it. Brian has been up for over 24 hours. He was there on the scene. He joins on the line from Vegas this morning. Good morning, Brian.
Morning, Eddie.
Brian, can you take us through your experience? You were on the 32nd floor at the Mandalay, were you?
Yeah, so my team were all here working, and we were going to go over to the concert, and our day kind of got away with us, so I decided to take them out for dinner, and finished dinner. I ordered a dessert that was taking a little bit longer, which has kind of worked out to be a good thing. And walking back to my room, got up to level 32, and this woman came running down the hallway and had this look on her face, like a look that I've just never seen before, and just looked straight at me and said, "We need to get out. There's a shooter behind. He's firing. We need to get out." And at first I didn't really know what she was saying, and then more people came running and they were screaming. So I just grabbed everybody and got them into an elevator, and we ended up out the back of a kitchen in Mandalay Bay. And I ran in, and all the staff were just going about their normal night working. They had no concept of what was going on upstairs. And I just yelled and said, "Guys, we need to get out of here. You need to drop everything you're doing. We need to go." And of course, they're looking at me, not knowing who I was. And I said, "Guys, trust me, we just need to go." And we got out. I just said, "We need a door that gets us out of the casino." And I made everybody hide down in the bushes. We hid under trees for probably around 3.5 hours. not knowing what was going on. There was helicopters everywhere. There was lights shining down, and I had no idea if it was police, if it was shooters. They all had guns and machine guns, and they started yelling, and we were all hands up, and hey, we're just normal people, and they had guns pointed at us and made us come out and patted us down, and took a while, and then they let us out and got us off the property, and we just had to walk. We walked 2 or 3 miles just away from the casino as quickly as we could until someone could come and pick us up.
Hey, Brian, thanks for sharing your this morning. As Ed said, I know you've been awake for 24 hours. You've grown up in Australia and lived in the States for 5 years now. As you're hiding in the bushes with all your team, were you getting any information through at all? Did you have any understanding of what had happened?
No, I mean, it was just kind of social media, and then, different family and friends either back home or in Australia or in the US were, looking at the news, and there was a couple of Twitters that we found that were from the police and the live scans. So they were kind of giving really good updates. I mean, the teams here and the first responders here in Vegas they were phenomenal. So we felt like we knew what was going on. We didn't know exactly what the process was going to be, but we just knew that we just needed to stay down and stay hidden and just wait.
And Brian, have you surveyed the scene outside? Could you see what was going on? Have you looked at where the concert was?
Yeah, so, some of my team had already gotten up to their rooms, and they saw when the shots were going off. Obviously, the crowd dispersed, but they could see people physically getting shot and going down and not getting back up, because obviously there was a lot of casualties, and it was really quite obvious from above what was going on. But now it's, all the streets are shut down. The police are still, these blocks are still blocked off, and it's just a very quiet, kind of weird vibe. I mean, it's not Vegas. People aren't just really saying anything. There's people around, people are hugging, but there's not really a lot of comments being made right now.
Speaking to Brian Hodge, an Australian who's been living in Vegas for 5 years, who had the room next door to the shooter, we believe. Brian, did you have a balcony at the front of your room, and have you got a clear picture of what that image would have been like if someone decided to stand on the balcony? Were there balconies next door to it? Can you give us a picture of how he was able to cause so much destruction?
So there's no balconies. He actually he checked in the hotel on Thursday and came with a specific hammer that's designed to break that glass. Whatever the glass is that casinos have, whether it's double pane or bulletproof or whatever it is, but was able to smash that glass and then actually shoot out through the glass that way. So cracked a massive big hole in the window pane.
And we understand he's been there since Thursday, so obviously clearly getting himself organised and up to 10 guns, 10 rifles. Hey, Brian, can you tell us, you're over there, you're working on shows, you're living in the Vegas area in the United States.
I live in Los Angeles.
Yeah, and can you tell us what's happening now? Your show's been cancelled. Have the lights gone down in Vegas? What's the, as you said, the vibe over there completely different? What's going on?
Yeah, so I was here to produce for a private client a concert for Weezer on Wednesday, and we just that client CEO just called and said, obviously we're going to cancel. So it's done, and now we're just waiting. There's a briefing just about to start with the police. They told me that I'm not going to get back to my room anytime soon, so we're just waiting to kind of find what the next steps are, and obviously what the company wants us to do.
And what do? You can't get back to your room, so all your gear's upstairs. Do you get another room somewhere? Have you been able to put your head down somewhere on a pillow?
Yeah, well, I mean, good things. Lots of amazing Aussies here. The Human Nature Boys and a lot of other friends that I have here. So there'll be someone that will take me in until we figure out what's next.
Well, Brian, thank you so much for taking the time out this morning to talk to us here in Melbourne, Australia. It's a devastating scene over there, and we really appreciate you giving us an Aussie voice to what's going on over there. And I suppose we're just like you. We can't believe what's happening there. The President of the United States have said basically the same things. No one can understand at all just what the hell has been going on, where a man who seemingly has been just an average sort of a Joe in the United States suddenly pulls out guns, automatic weapons, and mows down up to 58 people and some 500 others being injured.
Yep. Thanks, Brian, for your time. We appreciate it.
Yeah. You're welcome. Thank you, guys. Stay safe.
Everyone has America in their minds right now. Las Vegas, you'll be waking up to the news today, and last night it broke overnight. Horrific incident over there. Some maniac has killed 58 people and injured 500 others at the Mandalay Bay Hotel. Just very quickly before we talk to Brian, who mate of mine who used to live here on the Gold Coast, who was staying in the room next door to this guy. Here's a tweet I saw for you this morning. Today is the 275th day of 2017. We've had 273 mass shootings. What? We must address gun violence in America. First reply, and this is indicative of the problem. The gun use is controlled. It was the person who was using it. We don't ban cars because cars kill people. If I hear this car argument one more time, cars aren't designed to... The sole purpose of a gun is to kill someone.
Yeah.
A car...
It's not designed to run someone over. It's designed to get you from point A to point B.
And why can't you just have a single action? You don't need automatics or semi-automatics. Like in Australia, it takes 12 months to get your license.
Yes.
And in that case as well, you can only fire one shot at a time.
Well, that's it. This act was implemented when they had muskets. You could only fire them twice a minute.
Well, either way, I'm just reading here just to confirm, because we were talking about it before. Joseph Lombardo, the sheriff of Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, confirmed the shooter, Stephen Paddock, had been killed by police.
Don't even use his name.
Yeah.
I hate it.
Okay.
I hate it.
All right. Sorry.
But he has... yeah, sorry. I get it. It just makes me so mad. Especially because a friend of mine was involved in this incident and this could have gone much worse. Brian Hodge, who has lived here previously on the Gold Coast, in Vegas, staying next door to this guy. First of all, mate, are you okay?
Yeah, it's good to hear your voice, mate. Yeah, it's kind of all hitting home right now. It's kind of a weird vibe, and it's all. I'm actually walking back into the building, and I can see the window, and yeah, it's all a bit odd.
Hodgie, so you've been in a police questioning. You know, the investigation's been ongoing for the last couple of hours. You've been tied up with all that, but when it actually unfolded, what happened? Were you in the room next door and you heard gunshots go off?
So I actually was the music festival was directly across the road, and I had the night off, and so I was thinking about going across there, and our day kind of got away with this, and so I said to my team, let's just go for dinner and get an early night. So we went for dinner and ended up ordering a dessert that was going to take a little bit longer, and it turned out to be the best thing. But so I was walking back to the room and got up onto the 32nd floor where I was staying, and a woman, and as the elevator opened, a woman came straight up to me and had this very blank look on her face, and I thought that she knew me. I didn't really understand the look, and then she said, "There's a shooter behind me. He's shooting. We need to go. We need to run." And at first of all, I just didn't know what to think. And she said, "No, we need to run. And everyone started running out, and so I just pushed everybody into the elevator, and we ended up on the floor of one of the kitchens of the restaurants in Mandalay Bay, and I ran through there, and the staff are just cooking away, as normal. They have no idea what's happening 32 stories up. And I said, "Guys, there's a shooter. We've got to get out of here. There's a guy with guns." And they didn't really understand. And then I kind of said, "Guys, come on," and just started pushing people and said, "We need to get a door that leads us out of the casino." So we finally got out. Nobody had any idea what to do. I said, "Let's just hide under some bushes, get under some trees, and then just wait." And, people were like, "We want to run. We want to call our family." And I'm like, "Guys, let's just keep quiet, lay low, get down flat, and then just wait." So it took about 3.5 hours. And then all of a sudden we see some lights shining on the footpath. Again, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know whether to say anything or not say anything. We didn't know whether it was a shooter or all the police. And then a group of men come around with, huge machine guns, shotguns, and started yelling and asked us to identify ourselves. And this little Aussie boy from Wagga was not feeling great.
Wow.
And, hands straight up in the air. And they said, come out of the bushes, and hands in the air. And we came out, and, they pat us down, interrogate, guns up to your body. And then they kind of said, "All right, move around, follow to this one. We're going to the casino," same kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then we got let out the front and had to walk. They said, "Just walk. Just keep walking until somebody picks you up." So 2 or 3 miles down the road, we kept walking.
So, Brian, while this was all going on, was there still bullets being fired? Was
Yeah, absolutely. So when we got up the top, The bullets were, I mean, the loudest thing you could ever imagine. I mean, it was a movie times 10. It sounded like a war movie. And because, it was a automatic machine gun, it was like 100 bullets, and it went for, 20 seconds and then another, 5-second break and then went again. And
Brian, we've actually got
no
audio
idea
of that from Dan Bilzerian. Let's just very quickly listen to this one more time.
This girl just got shot in the fucking head. It's so crazy.
It sounds like something out of Apocalypse Now, like out of a war movie.
Well, I mean, it was so loud, it stopped the concert. And trust me, this concert was loud, and it stopped it. So, I mean, you can only imagine how loud it was.
Far out. So, I mean, not only have you got a gunman who's up there shooting at people, but then you guys are trying to hide in a bush to keep away from it all. Police come in to find you guys. They're then pressing guns up against you to check whether or not you're carrying anything. So you're terrified not only of the guy that's shooting, but then you're terrified of the people who are there to save you. Then you're made to walk down an area where this guy is still shooting anyway, and now you've been in a police investigation for the last, 2-3 hours.
How's your Monday going, Hodgie?
Are you even okay?
Yeah.
How are you?
When I came down, I said, hey, what's the thing? I've got, some of my team were up in their rooms, and they went through every room. So there were 7. SWAT team went into every single hotel room, whether you were asleep, awake, no matter what. They just busted straight in. So I had team members that had no idea what was going on, that got woken up at 2 o'clock, 2:30, 3 o'clock. That was crazy. So I was worried about them. But then I said, how do I get to my room? What's the story? And told them my room number, and they said, mate, you're not getting in that room anytime soon. And they'd let a bomb off at the front of our doors to knock down his door to get in because he had killed himself. The police are saying he had scopes, he had a specific hammer that broke down that window.
Yeah.
And he checked
He'd
in on
thought
Thursday.
it out.
So, I've been here since, yeah.
Yeah, he'd really thought this out. He knew what he wanted to do with it.
Evil.
This guy was setting up, right behind where I was sleeping.
Hodgie.
All right, mate. We're so glad that you're okay. When Dan told me that one of his mates were over there, I was just like, God, I hope he's okay.
Yeah.
I bet you would have seen a lot of heroism in there too. When bullets being fired, people helping save. We're seeing footage on the TV.
Well, it sounds like you were one of them.
Yeah, I was
Hodgie.
gonna
Good work,
say,
man.
you did us proud, mate. You got a whole bunch of people out of there, which a lot of others would have frozen and not known what to do.
Yeah, it was a very weird experience. I mean, one thing that I'm definitely heightened to, and, we obviously all see this in the media, is, police that shoot, thinking they're defending themselves because they don't really know who the other person is. And that was something I was really heightened to. And I kept saying to the team, we need to keep our heads, our hands in our heads. We need to keep communicating. We need to tell them that we're just normal people because we just can't take that risk.
Good on you, buddy.
Stay safe, brother. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks, guys.
See you, legend.